Well, Sajjan Gohel is joining us from London via Skype. He's the International Security Director for the Asia Pacific Foundation, which is a global security think tank. Welcome to the broadcast.
Good to be with you.
We understand that Abdeslam will fight extradition to France. He is the French national who grew up in Brussels. Does he have any chance of defeating this move?
This is a delaying tactic by his lawyer. It is always interesting how when terrorists are captured, they suddenly want to use the legal system to protect themselves, the same legal system they try and destroy. It's only a question of time before he is extradited. There is an agreement between Belgium and France to hand over criminals and terrorists, and it will take a bit of time because of bureaucracy, but it's only going to be a question of when and not if.
Abdeslam's lawyer says he is cooperating with police, as you know. The prosecutor, Francois Mollin, says he had planned to be a stadium suicide bomber during this coordinated attack, but backed out at the last minute. What else do they hope to get from him? What kind of information?
That alone is quite a chilling revelation that he was going to take part in the Stade de France suicide attack. But there is a lot of information that Abdeslam can add to, in the sense that how does ISIS recruit its individuals in Europe? Where are they based? Where are the safe houses? What is the logistical trail from Europe to Syria? What forms of communication do they use? Where are the safe havens in particular? Lots of different aspects that he could provide that would be useful for counterterrorism to potentially disrupt future plots. And a lot of people within ISIS will be nervous now as to what he could reveal.
I see. A lot of people are wondering, how did he evade the authorities for 4 or 5 months? And here he was just steps away from where he actually grew up.
Well, this is an important question, and it's one that will have to be looked at in more detail, because ultimately many people felt that Abdeslam would flee to Syria. And we know that throughout last year, he was traveling back and forth from Syria to Europe. Ultimately, terrorists tend to stay where they feel safe, where they have sanctuary and they have supporters and sympathizers. Now, Molenbeek is effectively the logistical center for ISIS, because Abdeslam is not the only terrorist connected to ISIS that comes from that suburb of Brussels. There have been a whole host of them that have carried out or attempted to carry out attacks. Ultimately, there's a trust deficit between the authorities and the community there, because they need to cooperate better. There has to be better forms of communication to avoid a situation like this, because if somebody like Abdeslam can hide under the radar for 4 months, lesser known ISIS suspects may be there too.
We know that the Brussels terror alert remains at 3 out of 4, which is high. What is the possibility that there are other cells planning further attacks?
We cannot rule out the fact that there are other ISIS cells throughout Europe dispersed, waiting for instructions from the headquarters in Raqqa in Syria to orchestrate an attack. But we also need to bear in mind that it's not always a top-down command and control system. A lot of those that have carried out attacks on behalf of ISIS have been self-starters, self-radicalized individuals, not directly trained by them, but motivated by their ideology. And that is sometimes harder to disrupt and foil. But in terms of the connection to ISIS in particular, Abdeslam's revelations, potential revelations, could be very important.
5 months later, do we know where the breakdown in intelligence was? What does this say? Does it say that they were very good at what they did, or that French authorities were lax?
I would say it's connected to that old adage that the intelligence services have to be lucky all the time, the terrorists have to be lucky just once. And very often they are able to exploit that, because terrorist groups operate in an unconventional way. Law enforcement is conventional, but there are things that need to be done to improve counterterrorism cooperation, because there is too much bureaucracy sometimes. There are delaying in getting the message across. Belgium alone, for every position and role, there has to be a Flemish and French speaker for the same position. And that creates a lot of extra bureaucracy. So there has to be a more streamlined effort to not only cooperate, but to share information, because otherwise terrorist groups like ISIS will exploit that vulnerability and that security gap.